Welcome
Welcome.
to the next episode of the BRIO in the Box podcast.
How you doing today, Zoss?
I am good.
Yeah?
Yes.
She woke up like this.
I was just commenting. I literally did wake up like this. Like I've done nothing. My ponytail's in the way of these headphones right now. Today we're going to talk about
Programming.
programming. You are the master programmer of the BRIO workouts.
Okay.
I will brag about you a little bit. One of my favorite pastimes.
Master is a big word.
Yes, you are the mastermind behind the BRIO programming. I will say that I feel like the programming of BRIO is a strength of ours. I think crafted over years of making a lot of mistakes.
For sure.
You've just like figured out how to do it well. We get lots of compliments on our programming. Even people that move away continue to follow BRIO workouts. We get lots of nice compliments on the programming. So we're going to talk about what all goes in, the kind of like peek behind the curtain of what goes into crafting a good CrossFit program, from the micro level of the day-to-day, week to week, month to month, the year, the cycles of how all this stuff comes to be.
Right.
Well, we need to take a step back first and just sort of establish some definitions of like what we're talking about.
Yeah.
So the textbook level 1 definition of CrossFit is
Constantly varied functional movements executed at high intensity.
So that has 3 components.
Yeah.
Constantly varied, the variance, functional movements pertains to the kinds of movements that we do. And then executed at high intensity is like the stimulus that we're looking for, the way we approach how we execute the varied functional movements.
Right.
Fair to say?
Yes.
So we're going to talk about the variance piece first.
Yeah.
There's 3 major categories of things that can be varied.
Yeah. So there are the weights you use, the reps, and then the movements.
Yeah. And reps sort of is like time, because more reps takes longer.
Exactly.
Right? So under load, what are all the different ways you can vary the load?
Anything from body weight, so there's no real weight at all.
Or even less than body weight?
Less than body weight.
Like a banded pull-up?
Sure. Yeah. All the way up to a 1 rep max deadlift or back squat or whatever.
And we've even been playing around with like some back squat, like walkouts.
Yeah.
Where you just walk out and hold and you do that above a 1 rep max. So
Right.
there are even some things you could go above.
And like Olympic
1 rep max.
weightlifting programming, they'll do, snatch pulls at above your 1 rep max snatch or whatever. So yeah, it can be super light or super heavy and everything in between.
Okay. And then reps
So
/ time.
everybody's favorite, well, some people's favorite is the 1 rep max.
1 rep
right?
max,
Just doing
maximum.
one heavy ass lift.
That's my fave. I love doing 1.
Yeah. 1s are good. And then all the way up to, the filthy 50s has 500 reps.
Yeah.
And Murph is a lot of reps.
Yeah.
So
So is that 600 reps in
600
Murph plus
plus
the
or
run?
miles.
Yeah.
And each step is a rep. So
That can. Or things like double unders are prescribed by the hundreds, right? So there's everything from 1 up to hundreds, theoretically,
yeah.
thousands, I suppose, if you want to go crazy.
The workouts will go anywhere from like a 5-second 1 rep max lift to a, hour-long workout sometimes.
So we have load, we have the rep / time, and then the movements themselves. And then here we can break that down further. So we could think about the movements in terms of their modality.
Yeah.
And they fall into 3 major categories.
Right. So there's gymnastics movements, which are generally like any kind of body weight exercise. There's monostructural, which is something you can do for a long time without stopping, right? Things
Cyclic
like
type movements.
Yeah, biking, ski erg, rowing, even double unders, that kind of thing, where it's a lot at once. And then
Those are the things people would traditionally call cardio.
right.
Technically, we call them monostructural movements.
Yeah.
Why do we do that? Why do we not call them cardio?
Because you can get cardio in a lot of different ways.
Yes.
It's not the only way to get your heart rate going is with a rower. You can do it with a barbell too.
Have you ever done 30 thrusters in a row?
Yeah.
That's a weightlifting movement. Would you say you got a cardiovascular response from that?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then
The last one is weightlifting. So any objects, they'll include wall balls and kettlebell swings into that because you're technically moving an object around. So anything from light to heavy any object is weightlifting.
So we have gymnastics, moving yourself through space.
Yeah.
Weightlifting, moving objects through space, and then monostructural, repetitive cyclic type movements.
Right.
All of which can create a cardiorespiratory response.
For sure. And then the other main components are you pushing, are you pulling, or are you squatting? And that's very traditionally like the bodybuilder kind of mentality, right? It used to be arms, legs, back, whatever, but I think now they're moving more towards push, pull, squat, except for like maybe the super high level bodybuilders that need to just really target one area or another.
Monday is back and buys, Tuesday's chest and tries.
Yeah. But I think a lot of the more common programs now are more about the type of movement you're doing. You're pushing, you're pulling, or you're squatting.
And so then between the modalities and the like direction of movement, there's the combinations of those things.
Right. So generally there's your single modality thing, right? If you're just doing Grace, you're doing clean and jerks and nothing else. The more common ones are couplets and triplets, where it's a combination of 2 or 3 things. And then you get into chippers, or you can do like, 5 rounds for time, where it's 5 different movements or whatever, which would be categorized more in the chipper, longer domain sort of area.
Chipper, generally 4 movements or more.
Yeah.
Usually when we say chipper format, we mean you do all of one thing and then you're done with it, like the filthy 50.
Yeah.
You do all the box jumps first and then you're done with box jumps and you just kind of move down this list. But so generally chipper format. So we're talking about programming for CrossFit. The hallmarks of CrossFit style workouts have a few pretty common things.
Yeah.
They're generally 15 minutes or less. They're generally couplets and triplets. They're generally complementary movement patterns. So like a push complemented with a pulling movement, or a pushing movement with a squatting movement. They're generally compound movements. So the types of movements you'll see are like compound, multi-joint, big things. It's rare to see like a tricep extension for in a CrossFit workout. You're going to see push-ups or thrusters or things that involve multi-joints, your whole body.
Yeah.
And then generally they're task priority. And by that, we mean they're for time.
Yeah. And we do that because there's more of a sense of urgency to get things done when there's like 3 rounds for time, versus if you have 15 minutes, you can kind of casually work your way through 15 minutes and not really get a lot of work done.
Like AMRAPs.
Yeah. So
those, what is that? 5, 15 minutes or less, couplets and triplets, complementary movement patterns, compound movements, task priority.
Yeah.
Those are the hallmarks of CrossFit style workouts because they are great at
intensity.
Yes. Intensity is the independent variable most commonly associated with maximizing the rate of return of favorable adaptation.
It's a mouthful.
There you go. That's a mouthful. Intensity is the thing, the independent variable, most commonly associated with increasing the rate of return.
Yeah.
So like getting you the results you want faster at favorable adaptations, which are any of the things that you would want out of your training program. You want to get leaner, you want to get stronger, you want to get faster, you want whatever it is. Intensity is the independent variable.
That's right.
You there. Intensity is directly equal to
power output.
Power.
Yeah. Which is load times distance over time.
So you can geek out a little bit.
Yeah.
So the engineers in the crowd will appreciate the power formula.
Yeah.
So there's 3 parts: load, how much does it weigh, times the distance, how far did you move it?
Yeah.
And then the more reps you do, that multiplies the distance, divided by time.
Yeah.
Like how long did it take you?
Yeah.
So then you can play with those 3 things: heavier, further, and by further I mean more reps usually, or faster.
Yeah.
Heavier, further, faster. Increase any one of those 3 variables or all 3 of them, and what happens?
Intensity goes up.
Intensity goes up because power output went up. The wattage of like literally the power that you're creating goes up.
Yeah.
So those are like, if you were to look at a CrossFit, like a month of CrossFit programming, I'm not saying every single workout is 15 minutes or less, or every single workout is complementary movement patterns. We can all think of examples of long workouts, of interference.
Yeah, good old JT.
JT.
Yeah.
Fun fact, did you know JT was the first hero workout ever posted on CrossFit.com?
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
JT, do you know what it is off by heart?
It's 2159, handstand push-up, ring dip, push-up.
So pushing.
All the pushing. And we always tell people when we're about to do this workout, be ready for the worst push-ups you've ever had in your entire life. And everybody's like, oh, okay, whatever. And then they get through their 21 dips and get to the push-ups and do 1 rep. And they're like, what the shit? Like, this is going to be a long 45 reps.
Yeah. And so then what happens to the intensity?
It drops.
Yeah. And there's some utility in working on muscle stamina or working in longer time domains. There's some utility, but the bulk of a good CrossFit program needs to prioritize intensity.
Yeah.
Like I'm trying to be clear that it's not like at the expense of everything else, but
yeah, it's great to do those types of things once in a while as a test.
Yeah.
Or, just a way to get out of your comfort zone or whatever.
Yeah.
Remember when we did the gymnastics seminar, Tucker recommended trying, he's like, at some point in your life, try doing a strict JT. So strict handstand push-up, strict dip, strict push-up. And he's like, that it's going to take you forever. He's like, that's fine. Just like do it, because it's a good way to like get out of your comfort zone of always keeping your handstand push-ups or whatever. And he's like, just focus on quality over speed and just like tough it out.
Yeah. That's a good point.
Yeah.
So one of my favorite phrases in CrossFit is you fail at the margins of your experience. So if you never lift heavy and then today you have to lift heavy, you're going to fail.
Yeah.
If you never sprint and now today you have to sprint, you're going to fail. So most of us that come to CrossFit from other sport backgrounds will fail at the margins of our experience. There's no other training program that adequately prepares you for all of the different demands of what we do.
For sure.
So what we do is we're trying to push out the margins of our experience by varying load, the reps or time, and the movements. Those are the three big ones. We could vary other things.
Yeah.
You could vary the temperature in which you work out. You could vary the time of day. You could vary whether you ate first or didn't eat first. Like, you can vary those things, but that's not like it's not the bulk of where you're going to get the benefit. Yeah. But certainly there's some utility to that. For sure. If you always work out in the evening and then one day you go to a competition and your heat time is at 7 a.m., you're going to be like, holy shit. Yeah. Or, you always train in frozen Canada and then you go to a competition in California and it's 40 degrees on the field. Like, people fail in those conditions too. So
I remember the first time we were going to go to regionals, we had no idea what to expect. And we did a couple workouts with no music. We did some with like all the doors closed and like making sure it was warm. We did some with weight vests just because we were like, well, let's just try everything and see how it is.
Challenge ourselves.
There's nothing worse than working out in dead silence.
It really is.
Just listening to each other breathe heavy and grunt.
Yeah, that's great. But, get out of your comfort zone, right? Yeah. Test the margins of your experience. Those were good mental training exercises to be adaptable
for sure
to anything, for sure. So CrossFit as a sport, we are a general physical preparedness program. Yeah. We're trying to make athletes that are broadly good at a lot of things. We try to cover all of our bases across what's called the 10 generally recognized physical skills. Do you think we can name them?
Yes. Strength, power, speed, cardio endurance, stamina, flexibility, balance, accuracy, agility, coordination.
Nailed it.
Boom.
All 10.
14 years in the making.
That's some level 4 shit right there.
Shit.
I hope you know the 10 by now after 14 years. So a CrossFit program is a combination of weightlifting, gymnastics, and monostructural.
Yeah.
It is a pet peeve thing of mine when people go, I tried CrossFit once. I tried a CrossFit workout. There's no such thing as a CrossFit workout. CrossFit is a methodology. It's a training program. You can't do one time because a 1 rep max back squat is CrossFit. Fran is CrossFit. Karen is CrossFit. Murph is CrossFit. 5K run is CrossFit. Like, CrossFit doesn't own a trademark on any of these things. In fact, we stole all of them from other sports. 1 rep max back squat, that's powerlifting, we don't, CrossFit doesn't have a trademark on toes to bar. Like, we don't own any of the movements. We own the methodology, the way that we combine them to create a certain outcome.
Yeah.
And so if you tried a CrossFit workout once, you didn't try CrossFit. You did a workout.
You need some time to try CrossFit. You need to give it at least 1 to 4 months.
Yeah.
To really get a feel for it.
You should say 4 months to get an entire cycle of programming, a season of it, enough of the variants, enough of all the different things to understand the full methodology. So keeping that in mind, one of the things we wanted to cover was how to spot bad programming. Yeah. And man, there's some bad programming.
There is. And we've been through those phases too, where it's a learning process. Like I look back at some of our workouts from 10 years ago and either it's like super easy and it's kind of a reassuring thing, like, wow, the sport of CrossFit has really come a long way. Or I look back and you're like, what the hell was I thinking? Like, that is crazy. Yeah. So as long as people are always like striving to do better and learn from their mistakes, then I think it's fine. But
so should you ever be in the unfortunate situation where you have to move away and you're not at BRIO anymore and you're crying yourself to sleep every night and you're looking for a new CrossFit gym and you were trying to evaluate what their programming looks like. You pop up a website, you take a look at a week or a month's worth of programming, some red flags. Yeah.
The main red flag I think is volume, right? If they're either A, trying to cram 3 or 4 different things into one 1 hour class, that's too much. I think you can do 2 shorter things or 1 longer thing and that's it. Or alternatively, if within that workout, there's just like a ridiculous amount of reps of something or multiple things.
So if like the average length of a workout, when you're looking at a month of programming, is like 30 minutes.
Yeah.
What do we know people are not doing a good job of? They're not working at intensity.
Yeah.
Right. They're doing long, slow workouts all the time because you can't work at high intensity for like 30 minutes.
Yeah.
So too much or too long.
Yeah.
I think a very rookie mistake is thinking that they make things harder by doing more reps or making it longer. Yeah. Which is false.
45 thrusters is hard, then 90 thrusters must be twice as hard. Yeah. And it's like, no, it's just different, right? Yeah. You can't push the same speed or weight or pace with 90 that you can with 45. So they're just different things. So just because it's more doesn't always necessarily mean it's harder.
Yeah. Other common thing, like missing elements.
Yeah. There's some places where they call themselves CrossFit style training or whatever, and all they do is like conditioning stuff. Nothing
like
but
a boot camp.
Yeah, nothing but kettlebell swings and box jumps and wall balls and the like cardio-y type stuff. If you've completely eliminated barbells, it's not a CrossFit program.
Yeah. Or even like a gym that never teaches a snatch.
Yeah.
It's like, that's a like common core movement for us because it's unique in its ability to generate power.
For sure.
It represents almost all 10 of those generally recognized physical skills. But if that's just left out of a CrossFit program, then it's not CrossFit anymore.
Yeah.
And then the flip side is gyms that only really like to lift heavy.
Yeah.
And then they don't do burpees and run 5K. And
burpees are for suckers. I'm just going to match.
Well, now you're just a weightlifting gym, right? Which is also fine.
Yeah.
But it's not CrossFit.
Yeah. You got to have a mixture of all of the things.
Yeah. And then, and this is always a struggle to balance wants versus needs.
Yeah. I think there's definitely the people that love the weightlifting and there's the people that love the cardio. And it's hard as a coach or like a gym operator to not get caught up in like giving people what they want versus what they need. It's great to do some of those super fun workouts that everybody loves once in a while. But if that's all you're doing and you're never really challenging people, you're not helping them work on their weaknesses, they're not really ever going to get that much better. So, I always talk about, there's a combination of sit-ups, kettlebell swings, and double unders. And whenever I do that combination, people are always like, that was such a great workout. I loved it. Like, that was a fun one. That was a fun one.
We call that just for fun.
It was just like a, filler workout where we're just going to have some fun. We're going to move fast. We're going to do some like pretty straightforward stuff. And those are great to do once in a while, but you can't do that kind of stuff all the time. Sometimes you have to do the like super dirty Fran type stuff. And you've got to do the like heavy back squat sets of 5s and 10s that are just riding the struggle bus the whole time. And you need to get uncomfortable. So, but on the flip side of that, if you only ever do the super like aggressive, really difficult stuff and nobody enjoys the process, then they're not going to show up or they're not going to try hard. And we always say the best program is the program that people will try the hardest on. Right?
The one that people will actually do.
Yeah.
You have to want to do it.
Yeah.
And then assuming you're doing it, it's the one you're going to try the hardest on.
Yeah, for sure. Because it all comes back to the intensity that we talked about at the beginning, right? Like the best program is the one that you apply the most intensity to. So got to work hard.
Yeah. I've seen, gyms make this mistake of like, well, this, exercise physiology textbook or this article says that this exact time frame of 20 seconds on, 4 minutes off is the most effective for increasing VO2 max in 12-year-old hockey players. So that's how we're going to train. You're like, guys, like who gives a shit?
Yeah.
Cool. It's interesting.
Yeah.
I love geeking out on the science, but like, that's not what's happening in your gym, right? You can't get too hung up on what happened in some exercise physiology lab.
Yeah.
It's like, you have to make it fun. You have to make it effective. You have to make people want to do it. You have to make them try hard. And, this is our hobby for all of us, right? We're supposed to enjoy the process. So there definitely needs to be some elements of fun.
There's a lot of science that backs up HIIT training, and it's like a super efficient way to like build up certain measures of fitness like VO2 max. But if all you've ever done in your life is HIIT training, where it's like 1 minute of work and 4 minutes of rest or whatever, and you try to compete at the CrossFit Games, like you're going to get destroyed because you can't do that same level of intensity for 5, 10, 15 minutes, whereas the CrossFitters who are doing all the stuff will be able to maintain higher levels of intensity. So it's all dependent on what your goal is. If you're trying to be a super awesome hockey player and that your longest shift on the ice is 30 seconds or a minute or whatever, then you need to focus mostly on that. But we're talking about the average human that just wants to be fit and healthy.
That's the difference between specializing and generalizing.
Yeah.
If you only run in 30 to 60 minute timeframes. You're going to suck if you have to do a sprint interval workout. If you only do sprint intervals, you're going to suck when you have to do a 60-minute something, so it's like we do all of it so that we can create people that are athletes with the broadest capacity across all those things. So red flags in programming, too much volume, missing a major component, either making it just boot campy conditioning stuff or just heavy weightlifting and missing the balance. And then, favoring too much in one side, not having a balance of wants versus needs. It's either not fun or it's too much fun. Yeah. There has to be some balance in there too. So keeping those things in mind, the sort of like background, basic definitions of what we're doing, let's take a peek into our programming, like your method for how this goes. So you program all the workouts. Yeah. What's your system? Where do you start conceptually? Do you start big picture, like think about the year, or do you start with the day and build outwards? What's your... I sort of have the whole year built up into different little segments, I guess. And that's entirely based upon our clientele, right? I know that the summertime is a bit of a wash for some people, right? They're lucky if they can get 2 or 3 workouts in. Often they're traveling or lake people or way whatever. Less consistency. Way less consistency. Yeah. I know that in the fall, everybody's coming off of that. So they're super committed. They're super dedicated. And then I know that leading up to the open, we're going to end up doing that. So we need to sort of prepare for that. A few weeks around Christmas are also usually kind of a wash. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So generally what I do is I make September the start of our year, and I try to do a good like strength session within the months from September to Christmas, where we generally try to start with a CrossFit total to kind of see where we're at coming off the summer. And then we'll do a lot more powerlifting type stuff than we normally do within those few months. And then we'll try to retest the total again before Christmas. Through the Christmas break, it's a lot more like fun stuff and partner workouts. And we have kind of some traditional type things we like to do, like our 150 burpees and the like 12 days of Christmas workout. So I throw some, repeats and stuff in there for that type of thing. And then leading up to the open, we know it's going to be primarily classic CrossFit, generally all about conditioning stuff. There, especially in the last few years, it's been a lot less like high skill movements. It's been more just like, what's your capacity? What's your work capacity? So we try to do like very traditional CrossFit type stuff. And then any of the lifting and stuff, we try to do it as fatigued lifting, because if you're going to do it in the open, chances are you're going to have to do a WOD first and then do the open. So I'll do more lifting at the end of a workout instead of at the beginning. Several times they've done that as the test, where it was one event, but it had 2 scored parts. So it was like, one of them was like a 12-minute AMRAP first, and then you had, was it 7 or 8 minutes to do a 1 rep max clean or something, so it's like, they like to do that so that you can't just have the strong weightlifters and powerlifters show up and smash on everybody. And then they have to actually like earn their way to the heavy barbell first. Yeah. And then after the open's done, we try to do a little bit more of a build up towards Murph. We live in a climate where we don't get to run year round. So going from 0 to 2 mile runs in a workout with a whole bunch of volume on the bodyweight stuff is always a bit of a challenge. So I try to do a bunch of prep work leading up to Murph, which is our May long weekend. And then after Murph and through the summer, we just take advantage of the ability to run outside. So we'll do more running stuff and then, all the regular traditional stuff. And we get to do more outside, like sled drags and prowler pushes and tire flips and just like the seasonal kind of stuff too. For sure. So it's always based on like classic CrossFit stuff. We're always doing WODs. We're always doing some weightlifting stuff. We're just, slight differences, slight variances from year to year. Dictated a bit by the weather. Yeah. It all started, like when we first started doing programming, I had no idea what I was doing. So we're just going to follow CrossFit.com. And honestly, that is a great place to start for most places. A lot of people will jump in on, Matt Fraser's program or Tia Toomey's program or whatever. And that programming is always like a multi-step thing. There's like 4 or 5 pieces because they're training for like the CrossFit Games. They're like high level athletes. Whereas the main page is just one thing, right? We did that for a long time. We started to struggle with, they would do 3 days on, 1 day off, 3 days on, 1 day off all the time. So whenever it was a 1 day off, I had to figure out something else to do. And it would, because we're open 7 days a week. So we would do 3 days. I'd be like, okay, like we'll fit in these 2 things. And then so often, whatever I programmed that day would come up
similar on the next day of CrossFit programming, and I'd be like, damn it, we just did deadlifts. Yeah. And so you run into holes like that. So we ended up following it a week behind, and that alleviated that problem. And then at one point we tried following one of the like competitive CrossFit programs.
Yeah. I won't say which one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It wasn't all good. It was very, very much focused on the open, right? And so there was a ton of movements that you see in the open, and then they would completely ignore a lot of the like stuff that we generally like to take advantage of. There was never a strongman sandbag or a prowler or whatever. It was like super heavy on a lot of open style movements, very repetitive. And then again, it would be like 4 pieces within a day. And you're like, okay, well, I only have time to do 1 or 2 of these things. So you're missing out on multiple parts of that program. So we did that for a little while and then realized that it wasn't a good fit and we could do a better job. And we know what our athletes are like, right? So I know what the strongest person in our gym is capable of doing. So I can program the full heavyweight based on that person, and then everybody else can scale appropriately. If you're following like Sam Dancer's program, but he can, deadlift like 600 plus pounds. Yeah. It's like, well, he's doing it with 405, but like that's your 1 rep max. It's like, people like to be able to do an RX once in a while. And if it's impossible to RX it, then it's really hard to stay motivated with that.
So I think if I'm going to sum up what you just said, some of the pitfalls of following outside programming, making it fit your schedule, especially if they don't program 7 days a week. Outside programs tend to be very generic because they're not going to program for like specialized equipment, which we're lucky enough to have things like strongman sandbags and, a full wall of ski ergs and stuff now that not every CrossFit gym has. So then they tend to program very generic stuff. So then you miss out on some of your cool toys that you have. A lot of the programs out there are meant for individuals, not classes. So they're not programmed with the intention of a 1 hour class in mind. They're meant for individuals that are in the gym training multiple hours every day. They're meant for high level CrossFit Games level athletes, not normal people. So they're way too much volume and way too high risk for people that are not being compensated for that risk by like winning competitions, not doing this like it's our profession. And then, it was about 6 months. We followed one of the well-known outside programs. We got kind of talked into it. And I will say, to our credit, I think one of our strengths is we're always willing to try something. Yeah. We're also very good at abandoning what is not working. We're good at not staying stuck in a rut and being like, well, this is just the way we've always done it. So it's going to stay that way.
It was a learning experience.
It was a learning experience. It was terrible. I will say I was not good I can't think of a single good thing about it, which is why I won't name which one it was because I'm saying shit about it. To the point that like members were coming up to us and being like, what is with the programming? Like it's like terrible right now. And how bad does something have to be for people to like bring it up? Yeah. It focused on like so much rowing in prep for the open where like maybe the row is going to be one component of one workout and you get 20% better at rowing and you saved yourself 30 seconds on that event. What we did not do leading up to the open was a single toes to bar for 3 months. I remember looking at the programming being like, toes to bar have been in the open every single year. That's one of the ones you can count on seeing, and we're just not going to train them. It seemed bonkers to me. It was such like from the outside perspective, but like I said, it's worth a try.
Yeah. And now to this day, like to avoid getting, stuck in a rut and doing the same thing over and over again, I will still borrow workouts from other places. So I try to look at CrossFit.com or Mayhem or wherever and be like, okay, like that looks reasonable for us. I can fit that into our week, and I'll borrow ideas from everybody.
So I think the absolute best programming is going to be customized in-house programming when it's done well. Yeah. Second best, if you're not good at programming, and there's plenty of coaches that aren't, or just don't want to, or don't like the process, like you kind of like the creative outlet of it, then I think second best is to follow someone else's outside program. It's going to be more generic. It's not going to fit your community and your space as well. Yeah. But it's better than in-house programming done poorly.
For sure.
So I would say in-house done well, then outside programming, then in-house done poorly. And unfortunately, there are a lot of gyms out there on number 3. Yeah. They're doing it themselves and they're not doing it well. Yeah. And they're falling into the pitfalls. Too much volume, trying to cram too much in an hour. They're missing components to favor something else. Yeah. And then they're losing sight of the CrossFit methodology.
Yeah. Back to my process.
Oh, so, yeah. Okay. Sorry.
The year.
Detour.
Detour. So I have my segments through the year that I slightly adjust. Then I generally go a week at a time. I always try to look at like my previous few days and make sure that it's never like too much of the same stuff back to back. But I guess I start each week with the lifting component. So, excuse me. So Tuesday, we always squat heavy. That's like that's our only real consistent thing that we do, because heavy squatting is just such a like super crucial part of training. So every Tuesday we do some sort of heavy squat. And then because we're doing a lifting component, I know that workout has to be a shorter one. So I try to make Tuesday our squat and sprint day. And then I'll generally put in like some Oli lifting or deadlifting or whatever EMOM type lifting stuff, 2 to 3, sometimes 4 days a week, depending on where we're at with the cycle. And then based on those lifting days, I will figure out the time domains of the rest of the week. So I'll be like, Monday's going to be a long one, and Tuesday's going to be my sprint day, and Wednesday's going to be my like intervals, and so on and so forth. So I'll start with the lifting, then do the time domains. Then based on the time domains and the lifting days, I start to put in where I want certain movements to be. If I know I'm going to do a sprint workout, I can't have 5 different movements in there. So I'm going to make that a couplet or maybe a triplet or something like that. And I start to piece together the movements based on, mixing it up so there's a lot of variety, but not doing like 5 super heavy shoulder days in a row. I try to make it, and I actually tell this to our new people when they first start. Often people think it's best if I go Monday on, Tuesday off, Wednesday on, Thursday off, Friday on. And I generally say that's actually not ideal, because I won't program 2 of the same type of stuff 2 days in a row for sure. So if you go Monday, Tuesday, you're guaranteed getting 2 completely different things. Whereas Wednesday and Monday might be more similar than Monday and Tuesday. So it's often better to go 2 days on, 1 day off, or something like that. So once I've figured out kind of where the movements are that I want to use for the week, I start to figure out the rep schemes based on the time domain that we're doing. And then that starts to like get everything together. And then I just kind of like review the whole week, make sure that I'm hitting all the movements that I want to hit. We generally have certain movements that I like to hit every week. Things like thrusters and, heavy squats on Tuesdays, like I said, and, some sort of pull-up, some sort of torta bar, like all the super like main CrossFit movements. I try to hit those every week. And then every like 2 weeks to a month or whatever, I'll throw in like sleds or sandbags or something that's sort of different that we don't necessarily have to train all the time. But it's
even like, I would say ring dips or like pistols, or like they're part of CrossFit, but they're not like
the ones that aren't like super common. Yeah. And try to mix it up so that we're still getting some of those in, but it's not that it has to be consistently every week. So yeah, start with the big year picture, and then I plug in the week. And then after I do the week's programming, you review it and give me the name. No, just kidding. You do all the coach's notes, and we just sort of like discuss, make sure that we're all on the same page here. And then
so behind the scenes, if you want to know how this all works, David has a ginormous spreadsheet that has been going for since the beginning. Since we started doing our own programming.
It's an Excel
2012
document.
It's a Google Sheets doc. And it is like every month going back like more than 10 years now. So it's giant.
So each tab is a month. So I can look at the whole month and figure out like what we need and what we're missing and whatever as I'm doing that month. And then I add a new tab for the next month.
And they're like color coded by like weightlifting stuff is purple, WODs are green, gymnastic skills are blue, I think. So so visually it's all laid out nicely for you to look at the like big picture of the month. So you do all the programming, you put everything in Beyond the Whiteboard and do the notes that show up in Beyond the Whiteboard. Then I hop in. My process is I do all of the notes that go out to our coaches.
And the spell checking.
And the spell checking. I know. There was one week where I didn't, and I bet you guys could pick out which week it was, because love you a lot, but you're not a good speller. So things I'm like, what? Anyway, that's where I come in, spell check. So then I take the notes that the athletes are going to see and be on the whiteboard, and then the coaches see that. They just get it ahead of time. So we're all on the same page, us, coaches, athletes, everybody's seeing the same info. And then anything additional that needs to get added to the coaches specifically about how to set up the gym, how to run multiple heats, like whatever, things that the coaches
flow of
organization. anything else needs to go in there. Sometimes I'll post videos for them if, you know, like progressions or teaching things or scaling, modifying, whatever. Yeah. So there's actually a whole hidden section of our website that only the coaches have access to, called the Coach Hub. And one of the things they have in there is the notes for the week come up.
And basically, like when I'm figuring out the workouts, it's all based around what I know we can do within our gym, right? So if we're going to do a workout with rowing, like we have 9 rowers and we have 14 people in a class.
We have 8 rowers.
We have 8 rowers? We have 9 rowers, including the one in our garage.
That's true.
We have 8 rowers in the gym, and 14 people classes normally. So I try not to make it that there's ever going to be a time where people are standing there waiting for a rower, right? Or if we're doing ski ergs, we have 5 ski ergs. Got that one right?
Yeah, nailed it.
I try to make it like 3 different things so we can rotate around and it all makes sense. So there's flow. Because I remember going to CrossFit way long time ago in Maui, and it was like in a garage, and there was 1 pull-up bar and like 3 barbells and like 2 boxes, I think. And there was probably 15 people that showed up for this workout. And we were doing pull-ups and like thrusters and whatever.
And they were just jumps. Like, figure it out. Like,
good luck, guys, figure it out. And it was fine, but
it was fun.
It was super fun.
Chaos, yeah.
But we like to, you know, offer that like professional, like you get to go at your pace and I'm going to go at my pace, and we never have to worry about waiting on each other. And, you know, that way so-and-so can have his level of intensity that he needs to get better. And this person doesn't have to feel intimidated by that person because they're doing their own separate things. So we try to make it all just sort of work and cohesive within our space. That's the big thing. You know, that's one of the big things that you're missing when you're following somebody else's program, is they don't know if you have a rower or how many rowers you have or how much weight you have or whatever. So there's definitely quite the process. The other thing I forgot to mention is if we're ever doing a repeat or somebody else's workouts, those go in early with the strength stuff. And that way I can build the rest of the week around them. Because again, I try not to do like too much volume of any movement or too much of the same thing back to back.
Yeah. And we do like, so the Masters online qualifier was, when was that? Back at the end of April. And we sprinkled in those workouts through the next couple of weeks. Cause you're like, oh, CrossFit HQ program, those workouts. They were fun. We give our athletes in the classes a chance to do those ones. So then they show up in the regular rotation. So if that's the process, let's talk about, take us through like a beginner's guide to programming, like to putting a workout together. So say someone is like at the lake for like a week and they're like, I need to do a workout. And maybe they have like 1 dumbbell or a skipping rope or something. Some basics of how to put together a workout for yourself if you ever had to.
Like the first thing you need to decide is like, how long do I want this workout to take? Yeah. Right. Like the time domain is kind of probably your step 1, right?
And the rookie mistake there would be?
It just needs to be an hour.
Yeah. 45 minutes. Yeah. Holy shit. What are you doing?
Yeah. Stop. So the time domain will dictate most of the other things, right? And, you know, equipment, of course, but let's say you're even in a gym. Like we were at a Globo gym while we were on holidays the other day in Edmonton, and we just went to a Globo gym, and it's like they have lots of equipment, and if you want to do a CrossFit workout in front of the Globo gymmers, cool.
In front of the mirrors. Oh God.
So start with your time domain. So if it's going to be short, you only want to spend 7 or 10 or 15 minutes, you probably just want a couplet or a triplet. If you want it to be a long workout, you probably need either more movements, or you need one of those movements probably to be a monostructural movement. Because if you're going to do a 30-minute AMRAP and all you're doing is dumbbell snatches and like burpees, that's going to be a shit ton of dumbbell snatches and burpees.
Like an unsafe number of dumbbell snatches.
Like a ridiculous amount. So there's sort of like rules you want to follow as far as volume of each movement goes. And I kind of always look at like the most high level of the, you know, games workouts or regionals or open workouts as like the standard, right? So if you're going to do pull-ups, for example, Murph is like a pretty high volume pull-up workout. It's 100 reps. For the average person, that is more than enough, right? Yeah. So if you're programming a workout with 200-300 pull-ups, probably way too much.
Stupid.
Same with push-ups, right? Push-ups, 200 is pushing it. Most people really struggle to get through a full amount of Murph with 200 push-ups. So any of those body weight exercises, you're in and around the hundreds, but
at the top maximum.
Yes.
And it seems to be with pull-ups that people's hands will give out
for sure
around 97 reps if it's supposed to be 100. You know, it's like there's those considerations too from like, you know, you don't need to do so much volume that you just bleed.
Yeah. So basic body weight movements you can probably get away with a large amount, but then advanced body weight movements, muscle ups, handstand push-ups, you're looking closer to the like 50 to, 75 range tops. Muscle ups, even like 30 is a lot.
Yeah.
Any kind of like moderate weight type stuff, things like Diane or Grace or whatever, you're usually in that like 30 to maybe 60 rep range. And then when you start getting into the lighter stuff, again, it depends how long you want it to be, but you can, there's is a workout that has 100 thrusters at 95 pounds. But generally it tends to be the shorter, faster, sprinty stuff. So the lighter weight stuff, you can do more volume, but
like wall balls, top end's about 150, like a Karen type volume. Dumbbell snatches, top end about 150.
Yeah.
That first year that they had dumbbell snatches in the open, and it was 150 was the volume, and you weren't allowed to use your hand on your leg.
Yeah.
That fucked people up. Yeah. Like that was a volume, and without the support for the back, that a lot of people were just like not injured, but just their spinal erector muscles were overwhelmed for like a good week.
And
after
the
that.
Increased intensity of doing it in the open, right? You always push harder in the open.
It was also paired with burpee box jump. So there was a bunch more hinging in the burpees. So I think that also exacerbated because it was a bit of an interference thing. So we have the lower skill body weight movements, sort of 100-ish range, higher skill body weight movements, like 50-ish range. Lighter, technically those are weightlifting movements, wall balls and dumbbell snatches and thrusters and things. You're kind of like, for the conditioning aspect of it, max of about 150. Yeah. Safety wise in there too. When we start to get into heavier external loads, like a Diane's, a 225 deadlift for the guys and 155 for the girls. Yeah. It's about, we always say it should be about 50% of one rep max. We work off of guys at the RX level that are deadlifting over 450 and girls over 300-ish. Yeah. So on paper, 50% sounds light, but in reality for volume, it feels very heavy.
Yeah. And it's about how short of a time you're doing it. If you do 50 reps over 15 minutes, it's not that big of a deal. Yeah. But if you're trying to do 50 reps in 3 minutes, it's fucking hard. Yeah. So
if you're putting a workout together, and we're kind of like relisting those hallmarks of CrossFit workouts, 15 minutes or less, couplets or triplets, complementary movement patterns in general, so you can maintain intensity. People are familiar with the core CrossFit movements. They are the compound multi-joint movements. I often, like if I was on holidays or like when I, travel teaching seminars, I'll get somewhere on a Friday night and go hit a hotel gym. I'll just like throw my time around for like 15 minutes and be like, I'm just going to like move for 15 minutes. And I might do like, dumbbell snatches, sit-ups and lunges or something, I'll just throw together like 3 movements, whatever I have available to me. Generally though, I give those ones a time priority instead of a task priority when I'm just by myself and I'm like, okay, I'm just going to do something quick. For sure. It's also easier for me to talk myself into working out alone, which is like a bummer when I'm like, okay, I'm just going to do something for 15 minutes or 10 minutes or whatever. For sure. And then I don't have to talk myself into be like, oh, okay, I'm gonna do 5 rounds of this big long thing. And,
and a good way to figure out like how much volume you're going to do is think about, it's like how long it takes you to do a rep, right? If I'm going to do dumbbell snatch, the fastest I'm going to do dumbbell snatch is probably around 2 seconds or so. So if I'm going to do 10 reps at a time, that's like 20 to maybe 30 seconds, right? So if you're planning on doing that and one other movement that takes 20 or 30 seconds to do that set, and you want to do 20 minutes worth, like, well, now you're doing 20 rounds and you just have to think, okay, can I do 20 rounds of that workout? And if the answer is yes, then okay, cool. And if the answer is, oh God, that would be terrible, then you need to add something else in or make it bigger sets with breaks in it or something like that.
Yeah, just shorten it up. You kind of ask yourself like, okay, so if I can work really hard to 10 minutes, what is the marginal benefit of me working to 20 minutes? Yeah. Is there any marginal benefit, or am I just making myself more sore and potentially like moving poorly at that point? You'd be better off going shorter, high intensity, moving well, good mechanics consistently across that time, and then just done.
We've done some experiments in the past where we'll do like 3 minutes of work, 90 seconds of rest, and we'll do 5 rounds. And then we'll do that same thing with that same amount of time, but no scheduled rest. And people often will get the same amount of work or less in the longer duration one, because most people can't work nonstop for 20 minutes. So you end up standing around or taking breaks, your transitions are slower or whatever. And when you look at it, you're like, oh, well, my rest time was about the same as if I was doing 3 minutes on, 90 seconds off. But by doing those interval style ones, you're working so much harder. So you're getting that intensity that you need, and then you get a break, and then you get to maintain that intensity. Whereas when you do, let's say, a 20-minute nonstop AMRAP, it's the same amount of volume, but at a slower pace. So you end up dropping your intensity.
Yeah. You're getting less benefit from it. I would say another, beginner guide to programming, think about the parts of the body that are just generally kind of vulnerable.
Right.
Low back, lumbar area, like Achilles tendon and like shoulder stability type stuff. So be cautious with the volume and then be aware of the interference
for sure
of the different movements. Like if you're just doing a ton of really ballistic stuff on the shoulders, or somebody brought to me once, they're like, look at this workout we just did. They had gone to another, not a CrossFit gym, a functional training gym with some coworkers of theirs. And they're like, oh, check out this workout we did. It was like a 45-minute AMRAP thing, but it was like tuck jumps, mountain climbers, skipping, and something where I was like, that is an awful programmed workout. That is dangerous because it was jumping. It was all very ballistic movements for a really long time that you were going to end up doing so much volume. I was like, that if I wanted to write a workout for how to blow your Achilles, that would be what I would write.
For sure.
You're like, who came out, like some of those things just blow my mind where you can't, people need to look at the, like you said, the time domain, therefore the totality of the volume you're going to do. And then also the movements you're picking and the interference of those things to make sure you're not just, setting yourself up to hurt yourself.
I generally try to, like, if I know I want to maintain intensity, we'll often do a workout where like the first round will be a heavier weight, and then the second round will be a lighter weight, and then the third round will be lighter still.
I love those ones.
Yeah. And that way it's like you can maintain a speed longer because you're getting like less weight, so you can push the intensity. And often in the open, you'll see it the opposite, where the first round will be light, and then it'll be heavier, and then heavier and heavier. And I totally get why they do that, because they want everybody, they want us to be inclusive. They want everybody to get a chance to do something. And if they started with a 405-pound deadlift or whatever, then they're going to eliminate, 50% of the people. So they try to make it inclusive, but then the people that are less fit are only going to make it so far, whereas the top level athletes are going to make it all the way through. You
have to earn your way to the heavy part.
You have to earn your way through, which is great for like testing purposes. And sometimes we will do those workouts as well as part of our training. But I feel like as far as like maintaining intensity, it's going to get slower if you're doing an ascending rep scheme or ascending weights, and it's going to get faster if you're doing a descending weight or descending rep scheme. The other big thing that I've seen a lot in the past is balancing out sort of the time on each movement that happens. This generally stems from somebody will want to use numbers that have some sort of meaning, right? Somebody's birth date or the day somebody died in a hero workout or something like that. And those can be done well and it makes sense. And then it can be done very poorly and it makes no sense at all. I remember seeing one workout, they were trying to do some sort of memorial workout. And it was something like the date, it was like March 27th or something like that. And it was like 3 push press and 27 sit-ups. And it's like, well, the push press are going to take you like 15 seconds tops. And then the sit-ups are going to take, 2 minutes or whatever. And then it was like 12 rounds. So you end up doing like 400 sit-ups and only 36 push press, you know? And it's like, well, that's ridiculous. Like that doesn't make any sense at all. So generally try to pick your reps based on how much volume you should be doing with that movement. Generally, if it's a heavier weight, you need it to be a lower volume one. If it's a lighter weight, you need it to be a higher volume one. If you want it to be long, you need to have some sort of like monostructural movement in there, like a run or a row or something to eat up some of that time. If you want it to be short and sprinty, you don't want to have a shit ton of movements in there where you're doing nothing but transitioning from one thing to another. There's just so many little rules that will help you figure out the best way to maintain intensity. So pick the time domain, then pick the movements you want to do, then pick the rep schemes. And, you can make it pretty if you want with making it your birth date or something, but only if it actually makes sense. If it just ruins the workout by doing your birth date, then sorry, you should have been born on a different day.
Go back and change your birthday.
I was actually joking about that with one of our members, Morgan. She loves man makers and skier calories. And I was like, oh, maybe we can make a birthday workout for you with man makers and skier calories. I'm like, what's your birthday? And I don't remember what her actual birthday is, but it was something like March 3rd or something like that. And I was like, you should have been born on like March 20th, because 3 man makers and 20 calories is a lot better than 3 man makers and 3 calories.
3 calories. Yeah, exactly. I was just going to add something. I lost my train of thought.
Oh dear.
You made me think of something when you were talking. Yeah, not enough coffee. So I always like to make the point to people that like the CrossFit methodology, or this idea of working at intensity, or like any of the things that we've named throughout this discussion, these are just tools. And you can take a tool and you can use it to create something beautiful, like a pencil. A pencil's a tool. You can use it to draw a beautiful picture, or you can take it and stab it through your eye. You know, like the methodology itself isn't the thing. It's like how you bring it to life. It's how you program it. It's how you execute it. It's how you coach it, like from all these perspectives, right? There's like who makes up the workouts, who coaches the workouts, who does the workouts. And so you can use it to create a beautiful picture, or you could use it to stab it through your eyeball. You know? Yeah,
there's definitely no such thing as the one best program or the perfect program. If it was, it would probably be Matt Fraser's or Tia Toomey's, because they're like the best CrossFitters ever.
Yeah.
But if I was to try to follow Matt Fraser's programming, I would die. I can't handle what he does. He is like crazy fit. So any program that you're following, you need to make sure you're catering it to your specific abilities. You need to ignore what, you know, the high level people are doing, and be like, okay, like if I'm going to do that workout and he can do 21 in a row and I can do 3 in a row, we're doing different workouts. You need to scale it down so that you're moving at the same pace or getting the same stimulus that they are getting with that.
And that's, I think, in what fits into that picture, that's the role of the coach.
For sure.
Is to adequately explain this intended stimulus of the workout and then help their athletes scale appropriately to achieve success in that intended stimulus.
Yeah. And I think I've said this before on a previous podcast. Sometimes it's fun to like test the waters and maybe do something heavier than you normally would or whatever. I generally recommend AMRAPs are those days, because then no matter what, you're done at 7 minutes or 10 minutes or whatever. If you're trying to do 5 rounds for time and you've way overestimated what you're capable of, and you're on a path to do a 45-minute workout and 30 of those minutes you're standing around resting, you're not really getting anything from that. So if you do want to test the waters, do it on an AMRAP, push it as hard as you can, and then you're done at 7 minutes.
And how often?
Not super often.
Not super often.
Once in a while.
Yeah. Because the core of CrossFit workouts prioritize intensity.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so if you always go very heavy and very slow, you're not doing CrossFit.
Yeah.
If you always go very light and very fast and don't challenge yourself, you're also not doing CrossFit, right? It's like the purpose is to, you know, work at intensity, relative intensity to each individual.
For sure.
And then, you know, we've hammered this point several times. The charter for safety is mechanics. You got to move well, then you got to move well consistently, and then you get to apply intensity.
Yeah.
So I think another thing is sort of a beginner's guide to programming. If you really are doing a workout where you want to like maximize like a sprint kind of super intense workout, then you're going to pick movements that you know you move very well or that don't require a lot of technical proficiency.
Yeah.
So you're going to pick burpees and, you know, bike sprints and stuff like that, where it's like you can just go to town and just get as uncomfortable as you possibly can tolerate. If you're not good at squat snatches or, you know, deadlifts or whatever, then you're not going to do those movements at high intensity, for speed. You know?
Even just doing those movements on your own, right? Like they say practice makes permanent, right? If you go out to the lake and you got your broomstick out and you're practicing a bunch of really bad snatches, then you're ingraining those movement patterns into yourself. And then you just got to fix that next time you're trying to snatch properly in the class. So when doing stuff on your own, keep it simple. Intervals are great because you can definitely work hard for a short amount of time and then take a break and then do it again. And then, just do the stuff you're super comfortable with.
Yeah. Okay. So
Programming 101.
Programming 101 inside the brain of David Riley, making up all your favorite workouts.
I do them mostly all now. So
there
was a period of time where I would program and be like, suckers, not doing that one. But now I try to actually.
David's on the wagon. David's fit now. Yeah. Good job. It has its seasons. Comes and goes.
I've been on a good streak though.
Yeah.
That's good.
Well done. Proud of you.
Thanks.
All right, guys. See you in the next one.
See you guys.